Okay, thank you, Chairman. We're now live streaming.
Thank you, Teresa. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Licensing Authority for Breckland Council. We'll go straight into the agenda to confirm the minutes of the last meeting, which we held together on the 11th of March 2020, pages 4 to 6. Are committee members content with those? Yep. Philip. Philip, you're on mute.
I was just voting to say I was happy with them.
Very efficient, Philip. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I should have said, put your hands up if you're happy with them. I am sorry. Teresa, do we have any apologies?
Madam Chairman, I have a further apology from the previous meeting. Councillor Dale has sent her apologies, and I believe Councillor Monument has as well, but I have got to check that. And obviously Councillor Brame and Councillor Kiddell.
Okay, Teresa, thank you. Item number 3, urgent business. I don't have any urgent business. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. And we don't. Any non-members wishing to address the meeting? I don't think we do. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is the quarterly team update.
Chair, I'm dealing with this again. Although you've already stolen my thunder on some of my update. As you'll know, and you've mentioned at the previous committee meeting, Rory Ringer has taken over management of the team for the interim period, and I'm supporting him where I can. And Josie, again, congratulations to Josie, has been appointed the team leader. And Laura and Lisa are currently splitting the role of the licensing officer between them, and also the assistant licensing officer, doing a few days a week each on each role. And we have to backfill the assistant licensing officer, which is currently in hand. And obviously the appointment of the animal welfare officer, you've already been updated on. So it's part-time post, 2.5 days a week for a 2-year fixed term period. The team are still working from home, but Laura and Lisa each visit the office once a week to catch up on printing plates, particularly for taxis and badges, and sending them out in the post. The team are able currently to process applications for all types of license if the applicant can supply all required documentation. There was no major impact from Super Saturday on the 4th of July. And since then, we've obviously had the 10 p.m. curfew, I can't even say that word, curfew, and rule of 6 imposed on licensed premises. The police are checking venues each weekend for the rule of 6, the wearing of masks, track and trace evidence, and closing at 10. The police are giving advice on the scene, and issues are reported to the team weekly. The team then contact the licence holder to check that they have taken the police advice on board. The last resort would be to call the premises licence holder in for review for non-compliance of public safety, that being the public safety objective. The team are still receiving applications for new premises licences, which is a positive sign, and temporary event notices numbers are lower as fewer community events are taking place, which again is to be expected. You may recall pavement licenses were introduced in July 2020. The policy was introduced with conditions. So far, we've only had 2 pavement licenses application. There have been major and significant legislative changes recently, which affect the licensed trade over the last 6 months. These have been communicated as far as possible with the licensed trade, and also the web pages have been kept up to date. The team, as you appreciate, are working hard to adapt with the new working environment, and I think they need to be congratulated because they have achieved the continuation of service, despite obviously all the challenges that they face with the new working environment. Thank you. That's all from me. Happy to take any questions, and either I or Josie can answer them. Thank you.
Sarah, just one question, and I'm not asking you to, well, you wouldn't do to mention any names, but as far as let's say the rule of 6 and the police community safety team checking things, have we had any misdemeanors in Breckland as far as licensed premises and cafes and things like that?
May I pass that over to Josie to answer, please?
Thank you for that. I have to, no, we've not received anything on the rule of 6, thankfully. It seems that most people are adhering to that, and that most of the premises are getting their staff to check. There doesn't appear to have been any issue with that in Breckland. The only issues we tended to have received are ensuring that certain premises are shut by 10 p.m. Who may have been late night venues previously. I think that message has well and truly gotten through now that the police are out every weekend checking. So just locking the door and not answering to the police is not going to be acceptable. They are aware of the problem premises. They were aware before they started. So they're quite cute in targeting and making sure that those premises that may have had issues previously are the ones that are double checked, if you like. But they have been going around checking every premises. So we've had a comprehensive list. Unfortunately, the majority are sticking to the rules. We don't appear to have too many problems. And fortunately, the last couple of weeks, that has seen an improvement, shall we say, I think across Norfolk, not just across Breckland.
Thanks, Josie. I would just like to concur with what Sarah said about the team. I happen to know myself of some premises that have been in touch with the licensing team. So, you know, a big thanks to Laura and Lisa, especially for having kept up the pace, made sure that all the paperwork and queries have been sorted out, and in particular to Josie, who's had a lot of correspondence regarding certain aspects of licensing. So thank you very much, Josie, for your patience and your tenacity over it. So Sarah, does anybody have any questions for Sarah or Josie? No, everybody's content. Right, so we'll move on to feedback and discussion on recent panel meetings. I don't think we've had any, have we, Josie?
We had to do a little bit of thinking and we couldn't think of any either. I don't think there certainly hasn't been any since lockdown, and we weren't aware of any between the intervening period of January to March. So.
Well, I suppose on one of the very, very few positives about the awful position that the country and the world has found themselves in, I suppose as far as taxi drivers are concerned, the poor taxi drivers have possibly been a lot quieter. So less offences were occurring on the roads, which has got to be a plus. Okay, well, we'll move on if nobody has any other questions. This is me looking at the screen. To the tome of the review of the Licensing Act 2003 policy, which is as heavy as a dictionary, Josie. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So I'm sorry for this bit, but I do have to read the report to you. So the purpose of the report and for this section is the consideration of the draft revised statement of licensing policy and to refer the final approved policy for full council for adoption. So just a bit of background. On the 24th of November 2005, Breckland Council became the licensing authority under the provision of the Licensing Act 2003 for the retail sale of alcohol, supply of alcohol by or on behalf of a club, the provision of regulated entertainment, and the provision of late night refreshment within the Breckland district. Section 5 of the Licensing Act 2003 requires Breckland Council, as the licensing authority, to prepare and publish a statement of its licensing policy at least every 5 years. This policy must also be kept under review, and the licensing authority may make such revisions as it considers appropriate. The current statement of licensing policy came into force on the 7th of January 2016, and a copy is attached as Appendix A. In order to comply with the legislative requirements, the current statement of licensing policy must therefore be reviewed, revised and published by the 7th of January 2021. The licensing, sorry, that's me. I have completed a review of the current statement of licensing policy, which has not been amended since the 7th of January 2016. The revised draft does not alter the approach to making decisions from that which was already in place. The revision changes have taken into account various legislative changes which have occurred since the previous revision. The proposed draft revised statement of licensing policy is attached as Appendix B, and we did highlight the changes so it made it easier to understand where those changes have been made. The revised statement of licensing policy seeks to provide guidance to applicants and other persons on the general approach that Breckland Council will take in terms of determining all licenses under the Licensing Act, with the overriding aim of promoting the 4 licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. As part of this process, the draft revised statement must be consulted on before its adoption by Council. Section 5.3 of the Licensing Act prescribes a list of those persons that the licensing authority must consult. Those include the Chief Constable of Norfolk Constabulary, Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service, persons or bodies representative of premises licence holders, club premises certificate holders, personal licence holders, and businesses and residents in the area, and the Director of Public Health at Norfolk County Council. Beyond those statutory requirements, it's for each licensing authority to decide the full extent of the consultation and whether any particular person or body is representative of the group described in the statute. The above consultation has now taken place with the consultation period of the draft revised statement of licensing policy taking place between the 28th of August and the 9th of October. This was with approval from the chairman of the Committee of the Licensing Authority, and the consultation was carried out in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003, using email where possible and letters where not. The draft statement was also placed on the Council's website, tweeted, and on the Council's Facebook page, and 2 responses were received. The Breckland Planning Department stated no comment, and a member of the public commented, "I think much more should be done to explain to consumers what safe limits of alcohol are and the penalties for antisocial behaviour, etc. Pictures may be much more effective than text, especially for migrant residents, so that they are helped to understand our laws." So they were the only 2 comments we received throughout the entire public consultation. Options available to the committee today are that they are limited, as the process is legislative and dictated by the Licensing Act 2003. The Council has no discretion as to you've got to make the statement of licensing policy, although there is some discretion as to the content. So the options available are either the committee consider the draft revised statement of licensing policy and approve it, and refer the statement of licensing policy to full Council for adoption, or you do nothing. The reason for the recommendation is to ensure that Breckland Council, acting as the licensing authority, can discharge its statutory duties under the Licensing Act 2003. The implications are constitutional and legal. If the authority does not produce a revised statement of licensing policy and related procedures within the statutory timescale, there is a risk that the authority will not be in a position to process applications, leaving the authority open to challenge by persons wishing to make those applications. Furthermore, the authority will also have failed to comply with its legal obligation under the Licensing Act and could face challenge. It meets the corporate priorities of your place, your health and well-being and your opportunity. Under crime and disorder, Norfolk Constabulary were consulted as a responsible authority under the legislation but made no comment. The equality and diversity human rights are contained within the policy. The risk to the authority is that if the authority does not produce a revised statement of licensing policy and related procedures within the statutory timescale, there is a risk that the authority will not be in a position to process the applications, and we will have failed to comply with the legal obligation under the Licensing Act. So the final recommendation is that in order for Breckland Council as the licensing authority to discharge its statutory duties under the Licensing Act 2003, the licensing committee and then full council approve the revised statement of licensing policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Josie. Committee, do you have any questions for Josie? No.
Nope.
Oh, hello, Vera. Welcome. If we don't have any questions, then for Josie, I did have, I think I asked it previously about licensed premises being in order. So if we don't have any, I don't have any questions for Josie.
Madam
Anyone
Chair,
else?
I don't see any hands up, Madam
Nope.
Chair.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that, Josie. Could we take the recommendations then? Josie, could you read them out again, or Teresa or Julie?
Yes, so the recommendations, Chairman, are that the committee consider the draft revised statement of licensing policy and approve it, and refer the statement of licensing policy to full council for adoption, or you do nothing.
So committee, could we take a vote on that first recommendation, please? All those in favour, could you raise your hands?
That's carried, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much. And the second one, Josie?
Well, do nothing.
No, I'm sorry, I thought you said in order for Breckland Council to discharge their responsibilities. I thought there was a second one. Oh, well, we were unanimous on that one, Josie, so I think that was carried.
So just to be clear, that was accepting the policy and putting it forward to full council for adoption.
That's right, that's correct.
Madam Chairman, can I just check to make sure there wasn't any votes against the recommendations or
Yes, Julie,
abstentions?
I saw everybody's hand up, so I shouldn't take it for granted, should I?
Okay.
Is there anybody against?
No.
No. So that's carried then, Josie, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee.
So we'll move on to item number 9. Vera, just to put in that Josie's previous presentation is going to come out to committee members. The slides are going to come out to committee members, so you'll be able to catch up on that in the next few days.
Thank you.
So item number 9, training requirements. So this is under a general discussion. So to ask committee members that are here today, have you got any training requirements that you feel need fulfilling? And
May I step in? I believe you have the personal license training coming up. Is it worth just checking that everybody is aware of that?
yes, we do. Do you think we could send out another email, please, Teresa?
Yes, of course, Madam Chairman. Just to remind you all that there is actually, you need to attend the 2 dates. What
It's
we've done
2
is
days,
broken
yeah.
the meeting, the training down into 2 dates. So that is the 3rd and the 4th of November. But yes, certainly I will get Karen Hitchcock to send a reminder out to all members for you. Okay, thank you.
That's lovely, Teresa. Thank you. So as far as other committee members are concerned, is there anything that you feel that the committee would benefit from any further training? But we've got 2 training days coming up, so I'm sure that things will be covered then. Committee, do you have any questions of any of the officers? No. So we'll move on to item number 10, which is the next meeting, which is on Wednesday, the 27th of January. And if nobody has any further questions, I thank you all very much, and thank you ever so much, officers, for all your work in the last tempestuous 9 or 10 months.